Hey everyone, welcome to 2 Car Pros. My name is Ryan, and today I'm going to be showing you exactly how to bench bleed a master cylinder. A brake master cylinder is responsible for sending hydraulic pressure to your brake calipers or drums and applying that braking force so your car will stop. Now, in order to install one on an automobile, it has to be bench bled before it's put on the car. There's a lot of people I've seen online and in person that say you can do it on the car. I disagree wholeheartedly. You need to do it on a bench, in a vise, and I'll explain why later. I'm doing this on my 1967 Camaro, but don't worry, don't let that scare you off. It's exactly the same for more modern automobiles. All master cylinders work exactly the same, regardless of year, make, or model. They just might look a little bit different, but the processes that I show are exactly the same. You might just have to adjust for different types of brake fluid. We have an older GM product, so we're going to be using .3. So you just need to look up your manufacturer's spec of DOT certified fluid, and that is pretty darn specific to the year, make, and model, so make sure to look that information up. The other warning I have for you is do not get any kind of brake fluid on paint. Brake fluid will strip paint relatively quickly. If you do get any kind of brake fluid on a painted surface, don't panic. Just get some water and wash it off best you can. That water will hopefully neutralize that chemical, and you might be able to save that painted piece if you act quickly enough. But the best treatment is prevention, so just try to avoid it. Use fender covers where applicable. Make sure you wear gloves. You are dealing with a chemical. I always like to wear gloves when dealing with any sort of chemical. It doesn't matter what it is. And clean up any spills that might be around. You wouldn't want an animal or something like that licking up the remains of your brake job. Basically, today's objective is getting all of the air out of the master cylinder before we put it on the vehicle. Pascal's law says that you can't compress a fluid, but you can compress air. So it's really easy to press air bubbles, which makes your pedal feel very, very spongy. So you want all of that air out of the system, so it's only liquid, so all of your braking force is applied onto those braking surfaces. It's very, very important to get all the air out of the braking system. With all out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so we're over here at my bench vise. I have our master cylinder nice and snug in here, so it's not gonna go anywhere. We're working with it later. I also have this kit. Mine's from CPP, but yours can be from anywhere. I have a link down below in the description to a great bench bleeding master kit that will work for pretty much everything. And this is going on a 1967 Camaro, but modern cars are the exact same way, so don't worry about that. We also have our associated .3 brake fluid. Use your proper manufacturer designated brake fluid. This is going on a GM car, so AC Delco .3, it's good to go. So we're going to grab our associated fittings. These might be different for your application, so just trial and error and make sure that you have the correct fitting for the correct hole, and don't try to cross thread it or force it because they're just plastic and you can break them fairly easily. So I'm going to put them down with just my fingers for right now, and then I'm going to grab a wrench. Mine's 9/16, yours could be different, and I'm just going to snug them up a little bit. Don't go crazy, they're just plastic. Just that snug is perfect. I don't have a torque spec for you. Just use your best judgment. So when you're tightening these, just make sure you're getting them tight enough so they don't leak air. There we go. Now we can put the tubes on. Now what we're going to do is install our tubes, and they'll just go on both of those fittings we just installed. There we go, and then our kit came with these really cool clips that are just going to clip onto the side of the master for both sides, like that, and then we're going to feed our tubes through them. There we go. Alright, as you can see, we've installed our tubes, and when you're doing these, you just want to make sure that they're down far enough into the reservoir so that way they won't suck any air by accident. Then we're going to grab our .3 brake fluid, and also while you're in the store buying this stuff, or maybe if you've received it online, make sure it has a seal on there, because if any moisture gets into the system, it can rust and corrode brake parts internally, and that's kind of the opposite of what you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to add enough brake fluid so both reservoirs are filled up about halfway. There we go. Those are nice and halfway. now we can move on. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a large blunt screwdriver and put it in the back of the Master. And the reason we're doing this on the bench as opposed to the car is on the bench we can actually insert the plunger all the way from its travel and then let it come back very, very slowly. And on the car, the brake push rod can't actuate that much far forward, so it's much better to do it on the bench where you can get all the air out. It's very, very difficult to do it on the car. I would even call it impossible. All right, so now what we're going to do is those holes right there, those little teeny tiny guys down there, those are actually what you want to be always completely submerged in brake fluid. You want those to never ever have air. So that's basically what we're doing here while we are priming. See those bubbles coming up? We're going to push in slowly with that blunt screwdriver. A lot of bubbles there, and then we're going to slowly let it come back. Just want to make sure that there's no, those little holes down there don't get any air upon the withdrawal. And you might notice the fluid dropping. If the fluid drops too much, go ahead and add some more. So the reason we're doing this slowly is if you go too fast, air will get in through the seal on the back where the plunger is, and that'll completely eliminate the reason why we're doing this. So you just want to keep going back and forth until you don't see any more air in those tubes or any bubbles coming out. My rear reservoir is getting a little low, so we'll just add some more fluid. There we go. So another tip I have for you is that when you've gone backward and forward about 5 to 10 times nice and slow, just give a little quick little pushes back and forth. You can see those bubbles coming in and out. That's really going to cycle the air out while we keep those tubes below the liquid level. Pushing in and out. Long strokes. And also your quick jabs until there's no more air in it, like ours is. So now we can move on. This next part kind of has to happen in quick succession. We're going to remove these tubes, we're going to put the lid back on, secure the lid, and then we're going to remove these fittings. Once we remove these fittings, you're basically on a timer to get it on the car, so you're not going to see me mad dash putting this on. You're just going to take my word for it. You're going to want to move quickly. You don't want to just let these sit here and drip all day, because then you'll basically undo all the work you just did. And before we get started doing all of the mad dash work, make sure you've got plenty of fluid in here. You know, top them off till they're about 3/4 full, and then you'll be ready. So it's going to start leaking as soon as you remove these fittings. Now I'm going to run over to the car. It's also a good idea to put your fingers over it while you're working. So I quickly ran over here and put our Master on. There was really no way for me to shoot that. You're timed, and if you don't do it correctly, you have to bench bleed it and want to do that. So I have all our lines hooked up. They're nice and tight. And then I want to go down here. This is the driver's front. And I want to show that I have a little bit of vacuum line on our bleeder. It's cracked open just a little bit. And it goes down here into a water bottle, so it can't get air up in there once it has been gravity bled down. Now the key to this is we're going to take the lid off. It's going to help it bleed, but once we do that, it's really going to want to drop fluid down there, and you have to keep your Master topped up, because if you don't, air gets in there, well, you're back to square one. And I have all 4 corners of the car set up that way, because this is a completely brand new system. There are nothing but air in my brake lines right now. All right, sometime later. It's been about 20 or 30 minutes. I haven't really been keeping track, but we can see down here, I cut my water bottle in half because it was kind of flopping over and being generally difficult. But the point I want you to focus on is that the opening for the tube is completely submerged in brake fluid. That means this entire tube is filled with brake fluid. And our braking system for this side of the car, this corner of the car, is completely bled. So that means we can tighten our bleeder back there, which I've already done off camera, because I don't want any air getting in there. And you just do this for all 4 corners of the vehicle, and you have gravity bled your system. Alternatively, you could bleed your brakes exactly the way you normally would, but you're gonna need 2 people to do that, and I have a link down below in the description to that video. A lot of people prefer that way, and I understand that, but if you're alone like me, the gravity bleed is the way to go. And before you go anywhere, make sure that you get in the driver's seat and slowly depress the brakes and let them come back, and slowly depress the brakes and come back, just to make sure you have a nice firm pedal. Don't go anywhere if the pedal isn't nice and firm. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope I've earned your subscription here on YouTube today. I do automotive tutorials just like this one. We're also in the midst of building an LS right from scratch. I've left the link down below in the description to that playlist. We've also basically finished our How to Build a Big Block series. We heard it run a couple weeks ago. Really exciting stuff. I want to thank you so much for watching. Make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you next time.